And I think a good way to sum up what we're trying to do here is we're trying to build Concepts of a Pod into basically the Democratic Shark Tank, where anyone who's looking to raise money for Democrats should come on the platform. And as the donors, you guys are the sharks. So you are our only investors. And Mark Cuban, if you're listening to this, we'd love to have you as a guest shark. And if you're not Mark Cuban, but you want to see Mark Cuban on Concepts of a Pod, like and share this and tag him. He actually, all seriousness, has been breaking through with Democratic talking points in places that most Democrats wouldn't break through. And we need to figure out how to tell our story in a way that breaks through to people who aren't already engaged with this stuff. And for more on that, we're going to reflect on the first month of the Trump presidency as seen by various parts of the liberal media, share some thoughts from our Democratic supporter focus group, and break down our concepts of a plan to fix it. I'm Jordan, the guy who spent 4 years being the reason you get some of the most annoying fundraising texts, only to decide it's time to burn it down and do it right.
And I'm Shayna. I'm the one who would come annoyingly knock on your door and ask to talk to you about politics in the middle of the day, and encourage you to go out and vote. I have done field organizing for the last 7 years, and this is Concepts of a Pod.
Yes, and Shayna did the real work while I discovered the grifty mess of a world I had stumbled into. And now that the Democratic establishment spent $1.5 billion to do nothing but end us up in an absolute mess, we're going to talk about what we can really do to fix it. And I know people are upset right now. People are demanding immediate action from their senators and representatives. But I saw a tweet that actually really sums up every part of the problem Democrats are facing right now. And it came from a Democratic influencer that you may or may not know, Olivia Julianna, who became famous when Matt Gaetz insulted her online and has now used the platform to continue talking about Democratic politics. And she said, "I have an article written coming out tomorrow morning about congressional Democrats' strategy, and now my timeline is full of members absolutely cooking. Y'all couldn't have done this 2 days ago when I wrote it." And for timestamp, this episode is being recorded on Wednesday, February 12th, and this tweet was posted the evening of Tuesday, February 11th when I read it. And I actually, now that the article's out, think it's worth reading and discussing here on Concepts of a Pod, because again, we are the place for all supporters of the Democratic Party to really have a real conversation about what's next. So here it is. Congressional Democrats Are Failing Us by Olivia Julianna, published February 12th, 2025. This election made one thing painfully clear. Democrats have lost control of the media narrative and the ability to communicate effectively. The party is stuck in its own bubble, more focused on impressing insiders than actually speaking to the average voter in a swing state.
Politics in modern America is political theater, whether we like it or not. The cameras never turn off. The social media gives politicians a 24/7 direct line to voters. Right now, Democrats should be setting the narrative. Every ounce of Democratic messaging should be focused on breaking through to people on the margins. Instead, Congress is still stuck pushing talking points that simply don't land and using digital strategies that stopped working in 2016.
And let's be honest, not everyone can be an AOC or a Jasmine Crockett. Not everyone has the humor or quick wit of Jared Moskowitz. But that's not the point. We have teachers in Congress who can speak from the heart about how dismantling the Department of Education will destroy kids' futures. We don't need every Democrat to be a firebrand. We just need them to be themselves, to bring their real-life experience to the table, and to show voters that they're more than just a name on a vote tally.
The midterms will be here before we know it. We need to start priming voters now and making the case for our party before it's too late. Because if we don't, we risk handing Trump 4 full years of a Republican-controlled trifecta.
There's a lot to unpack there, and
yeah, there's a lot
full
there.
Disclosure, Shayna and I read through the entire text of this as we were recording. This will be edited down to give you the highlights, but our conversation right now is real-time based on taking in this article together for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. A lot of what she says, I think we've said before, the idea of speaking directly to the camera. I know it's something we've talked about among Democratic fundraisers and how if you're asking for money, you should be talking directly to the camera. But what do you think?
Boy, what did I think? And as you said, there's a lot to unpack. One of the things that really stuck out to me in that article as we were reading it, and like Jordan said, we both read it for the first time in full just now together because we wanted to give you our raw reaction, was that Olivia Julianna keeps mentioning that we need people to be human and genuine and honest. And I know we're going to get into this, but it just really struck me that she kept talking about how leaders need to be transparent. And I think that's something that's going to be a really large theme, not just fighting with Republicans to do this, but also fighting with Democrats to be transparent and honest about what is happening. Just like she said, regular people don't care that these electeds are standing in front of the Department of Education because it doesn't impact their everyday lives of trying to feed their children and put gas in their car to be able to get to work. Those are all issues. They're all very large issues, but I think there were too many themes that Olivia was trying to point to in this article. And I don't know, I feel like she needed to pick one theme. There were too many things happening with too little to say about each of them. And I think that's a theme we see on her social media too.
I was just gonna say that because I was thinking back to, and I think the tweet that originally drew me to this article really sums it up. The fact that she wrote this whole think piece on Democratic strategy as if she was in the room where it happened, and yet by the time the article's published, it's out of date. And at least she's honest about that. And it's why we say on our podcast here that we don't try to keep up with the rat race because we just don't have the manpower to do that yet. But we're not going to pretend. Instead, we're really building this media platform as a true independent space to comment on the conversation. Something else I've noticed with a lot of her tweets during the election, and it's funny, I noticed it because there was what she was calling a right-wing conspiracy theory about it, where she and a bunch of other Democratic influencers, I could name them, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, I think like JoJo from Jers was one of them, and then the other name that really stuck out was Lindy Lee, because she's getting a lot of heat right now. But there were these right-wing conspiracy theories that these Democratic influencers were essentially being paid to post. I don't know whether or not that's true, and I know that certainly right-wing conspiracy theorists are operating in bad faith, but I won't deny that a lot of those tweets did look a little similar around the election time.
Here's the thing too. I'm someone who's way too deep in TikTok and chronically online. When you're an influencer, you make your money by being paid to do things and doing brand sponsorships. And first of all, there should be no shame in you saying, yeah, I'm getting paid to do this. I think we've kind of forgotten what the word influencer means. And people who have great influence are the ones who have been super open and honest. I don't know if this is the right person to bring up for this niche, but Alex Earl, if you don't know who she is, she's huge on social media, and she came from a very rich, politically affluent family, but she has always been really open and honest about things and about her life. And that's one of the things that people really, really love about her. She's been honest about when she likes products that she was paid to talk about. She's been honest when she didn't like products she was paid to talk about. Anyways, long story short, I guarantee you, and I know also, because I was in the room where it happened a few times, that influencers were most likely paid to post things.
You think?
I've mentioned this before. I was at the DNC, and there were a couple of nights where I was super lucky and I got to sit in the influencer suite. And at the same time, lots of influencers would post the same thing or something super similar at the same time. Or I heard some influencers talking about, I'm editing this video that I need to post for the DNC. I'm not going to say I can confirm or deny that they were being paid to do those things, but the DNC had a suite for influencers to be at. That kind of tells you what you need to know.
Question, and if you don't remember, that's fine. Do you happen to remember ever seeing Lindy Lee in that room, if you know who she is?
I don't remember seeing Lindy Lee in that room, but Olivia Julianna was in that suite. Annie Wu was in that suite. Representative Maxwell Frost was in that suite.
He's a member of Congress, though. I don't think we can lump... I mean, we're verging on not confirming, but entertaining something that started in right-wing conspiracy land, so let's just be careful who we loop into this. I'm talking about a few people whose tweets I've seen be similar. I don't think I've seen Congressman Frost fall in...
Who was in the suite with me?
Yeah. No, it's just, I want to go back to Lindy Lee, though, because I don't know if you've seen recently, but she now has a new gig as a former Democrat who's all over Fox News talking about why we failed. And it's funny, if you listen to her on Fox, it's pretty similar talking points to this article Olivia wrote about why Democrats failed. And it's a genre of content that I don't want to say any motivation to it, like, not everyone makes it for the same reason, but people who are chronically online, like Shayna and I will both admit we are, read and react to things that come across their timelines in real time, and act as if because they're chronically online, they are somehow in a position to influence it. And usually it's somebody who went viral for one thing at some point. In Olivia's case, it was some disgusting shit that Matt Gaetz pulled that she should have never had to go through, and good for her for turning that platform into something real. But at the same time, those circles of influencers, like you said, if they really were in a room together, that's a very small room that maybe reading comments from people all over the country, but in reality, what they're doing is they're feeding the algorithm. They're not giving the people what they want. They're giving the people what the algorithm wants. And that's why New Digital Now has created our own technology to collect user input. And I know we send a lot of texts asking you to respond to things. And it's for two reasons. One, it's to collect what people are feeling without the bias of the algorithm. But also, we're testing brand new technology to gather that input because we think it's the only way to make sure that Democrats like you can be heard regardless of whether or not your video is good for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok's ad revenue, much less any political bias they may or may not have. And I bring this up because somebody in our focus group said, I don't know where all the money goes. Every contact asks for a donation. And I just want to set it before I'll say it again. Be straight up with you on why we ask you for money when we ask for your input and where that money goes, because in the spirit of transparency, it's the least we can do. And we ask for money every time we send something because we're not funded by Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, or Rupert Murdoch. And we're trying to compete with these massive propaganda spheres to get your voice to the center of democratic conversation. And we're building the technology to do all of that from scratch, and it's all thanks to you. So every improvement you've seen in the technology, every change you've seen in the surveys, that's where this money's going. It's going to build this experience for you all where you can get your voices into the democratic sphere. And we introduced you to the Blue Anchor Project, our first partner group in growing this new network of activists who are actually doing the work on the ground and allowing them to speak to you. So that's why we launched Concepts of a Pod, because clearly our corporate legacy media failed to protect our democracy. So we got to use our First Amendment rights and do it ourselves.
Yeah, we're thankful for every donation we get, whether it's financial or verbal. It's all incredibly helpful to us. And just like you said, the spirit of transparency, because I don't think a lot of people realize that it costs money to send out those text messages. It's a service that we use from other organizations that help us out in this. And we're not funded by jackass billionaires, for lack of a better way to say it. Actually, I think that's a pretty good way to say it. And we're so thankful that all of you are continuing to believe in us to be able to continue to send you information and take in your input. We truly read through all of it, and it means the world to us that you have been here with us and are hopefully going to continue to be with us. as we get through not just the first month of Trump's presidency, but the next many, many more.
Yeah, thank you guys so much again. And this actually leads nicely into another comment I read from one of our supporters who said, in response to one of our messages, I recognize this work needs to be done, but I can't help think that any time or effort spent on things which don't actively obstruct the GOP-led fascist takeover of America is putting our future at greater risk. Let us know how you're helping to stop what's happening, and if you're not doing anything, start. And I think that deserves a straight-up response, because it sums up what we think everybody who asks you for money should have to answer. What are you doing to make things better? And what we do as New Digital Now is we take the power, the platform, the knowledge, and the skills that we've learned from having seen how broken the Democratic Party is firsthand, and we collect input from you on what you think is going wrong, and we talk to you each week about how we can turn that into real action and how we can figure out how to get that into the media. Because the lawyers are fighting their fight, members of Congress should be fighting theirs, and let's be clear, if they're not, we can deal with that in the primaries. So
we are just like anytime you see someone trying to make change, there's lots of moving parts. We promise that we are doing what we can with the people that we know to talk to them. That's how our partnership with Blue Anchor Project came to be. We spent a lot of time talking with them, making sure that our values align, seeing how they could help us, how we could help them. And now we have this really wonderful partnership that we launched in the last podcast episode, where they are working on the ground in the northeast part of the country, in the blue wall part of the country. And we are really hopeful to find other groups like that. And we're so excited to be working with Blue Anchor Project. And actually, question for all of you, let us know if you know of any groups in your area who are doing things that align with our platform that you want us to talk to or connect us with. We need your help in that too.
yeah, we'd love to hear who you'd want us to partner with and whose voices you want to see us amplify to the national network of Democratic donors like you. But in the meantime, there's one other really important thing that we can do with our platform, and it's actually something one of our supporters suggested that I don't think they entirely knew who we were when they get one of 60 texts, because somebody said, provide accurate information on what voters can do to support No Kings Act or any other legislation or action where we can have a real impact by signing petitions, making phone calls, or donating. We want to help, but we don't know what/who to believe. This was a comment on our last podcast with the Blue Anchor Project, and for anyone who may not know, the No Kings Act is a piece of legislation that Senator Schumer introduced that was never going to pass to overturn Trump's immunity decision, but immediately after Senator Schumer introduced it, all of the scammy text fundraising groups started raising a bunch of money off it. So one of the biggest things we can do is tell people the truth about which of those texts are real, what groups who text you for money can't do, and what we actually can do and are doing to make the Democratic Party a better place so that we can win in the next elections. And upon reading this comment, actually, we built a prototype for a new petition system where we will be texting you, asking you to sign petitions, but unlike a lot of those scams, it's not some BS. We actually took the time to build out a version of, I don't know if, Shayna, do you remember that old website that the Obama White House had where you could fill out petitions and suggest your own, and if enough people signed, the White House would actually respond to the petition?
We talked about that the other day, and I'll let you announce our next new thing.
Yeah, after we talked about this, since that website no longer works in the new Trump administration, we decided that we were going to build our own, and earlier this week we launched it to our most dedicated supporters. We've gotten some great feedback on it too, and I'll admit I made a mistake in the code and it went to the fundraising ask too quickly. I swear to you that was not intentional. There was not an easy enough way to get back to sign more petitions, once you signed one. And I saw a comment from a supporter who was frustrated by that, and so we fixed it. And actually, it was bittersweet this morning to see one of our supporters say, "Thank you for the prompt response to my complaints about petitions that require donations in order to be counted. It's the first time anyone has ever replied to me." I mean, I'm glad that you appreciate what we're doing here, but it breaks my heart that that's the case, because that should be the bare minimum.
Oh, 100%. And just, to remind everyone, we do all of this ourselves. The team that you hear about from New Digital Now, it's right here. Like, it's us. And so everything that you see, all of that coding is all done by Jordan. And so if there's things that you see that are not working, and like I said, I promise we read everything, let us know and we will fix it. We're so glad that, this supporter let us know. But also, come on, guys, what are you other groups doing out there? I know I don't just speak for myself when I say that no one hates anything more than getting ghosted. It's a horrible feeling. And when you are putting input in, whether it's financial or verbal or emotional or physical, into anything with politics, you deserve a response back. And so we're so glad that you guys tell us when something is going wrong or something is going right. We want to reply to you. And even though we can't get to every reply because we get thousands of replies, this podcast is one of the ways that we can say thank you to you and talk to you about what's going on. But I promise, like this person said, I couldn't go back and sign more petitions. It just immediately kept asking me to donate. We were like, great, thanks for letting us know. And we fixed it.
Yeah, no, and of course, we do read every single reply that comes in, but we can't address every single one of them in writing or on our podcast. And we also have a plan to grow this team and bring on more dedicated young professionals who are working to fight back. I know Elon's making a lot of great talent available, and we would love to be able to help some of those civil servants who have dedicated their careers to this country an opportunity to help fight back. So your support helps us build the foundation for which we can grow this team. And as for what we're actually doing to get the things done based on the petitions that you're signing, we'll be upfront with you. We are not God. We are not members of Congress. We cannot do things because 5,000 people sign. Anyone who tells you in a text that they can do things if 5,000 people sign or 100,000 people sign is lying. What we will use the petitions for, and especially the custom petitions that our users submit, is to shape our strategy so that we know what the Democratic base cares about. I mean, that's really what matters, because at the end of the day, as we introduce you guys to all of these partners that we are growing our program to work with, we have some exciting things in the works, by the way, stay tuned. But we've realized that we're living in a world where there is no good way, as Olivia said, as many of our focus group respondents have said, it feels like there's no good way for Democrats' voices to make it into the media. And it's because we're living in this 24/7 era now. Social media is part of it, but the other half that really hasn't been touched on enough feels like we're living in reality TV. And even with Doge now especially, it's like it's an episode of The Apprentice where Trump sits in the big chair with his advisor Elon next to him. It's like Elon's replaced Ivanka, which, serious downgrade, but I'll just...
Yeah.
I mean, not praising Ivanka Trump in any way, but compared to Elon Musk. Beside the point, the fact is we're living in this reality TV-esque world, and it feels like in many ways Democratic strategists are the only ones who haven't realized that, because the fact is Americans love reality TV. Even if they call it trashy, they can't turn it off. And right now, Donald Trump has turned Washington into that. But let's be real here, The Apprentice just wasn't that good. But the reason people still watch is because Democrats have yet to produce a better reality show. And when we talk about needing to play the game, we don't need to stoop to his level and say the stupid stuff he says. We need to use the format, because there's a difference between what you say and how you say it. And I think a good way to sum up what we're trying to do here is we're trying to build Concepts of the Pod into basically the Democratic Shark Tank, where anyone who's looking to raise money for Democrats should come on the platform and tell you a little more about what we do. And as the donors, you guys are the sharks. So It's really what we're building is an interactive Shark Tank where you guys get to judge the Democratic platform, and you are our only investors. And Mark Cuban, if you're listening to this, we'd love to have you as a guest shark. And if you're not Mark Cuban, but you want to see Mark Cuban on Concepts of a Pod, like and share this and tag him. He actually, all seriousness, has been doing a lot of great communications and breaking through with Democratic talking points in places that most Democrats wouldn't break through, because while the Olivia Juliannas of the world are ratcheting up the likes, shares, and comments within the Democratic bubble, Mark Cuban is going out and calling out Trump's BS on Finance Bro Pods.
So, long story short, Mark Cuban, we would love for you to join us.
Yeah, no, but it also really, more than that, I think we need to really look at the communication style that has done so well for him on Shark Tank. And we need to figure out how to tell our story in a way that breaks through to people who aren't already engaged with this stuff. And for more on that, I actually want to now turn to our supporter Q&A for the day, because someone asked, Trump apparently is still freezing some federal funds. What recourse do we have to stop this blatant disregard for the law?
That is a wonderful, wonderful question. I honestly, I wish I had an answer.
I have one, and the answer is, with all of the anxiety we've all been feeling about everything happening around us, from the career civil servants I know who don't know whether or not they're going to have a job, to people worried about the price of eggs and everything else, which, let's be clear, inflation is up 3%. Trump promised not just that he was going to cut inflation, but that he was going to bring prices down. Inflation is up 3%. But what we're going to do is use our platform and focus on the issues where we can try to break through, because, as I said earlier, there are very smart civil rights and election lawyers and Democratic Party law firms that are challenging everything Trump does in court. Those things take time, but judges have already been overturning things that Trump is doing, and it's going to be on us to hold them to account and make sure that they abide by those rulings. But there are things that Democrats are doing, and Democrats on Capitol Hill, I know a lot of our supporters have wanted them to be stronger, and it's on us to continue calling our members of Congress, because it's funny, Olivia Julianna said they finally woke up and she finally sees them, quote-unquote, cooking on her timeline, but that's because people like you have called their offices. I mean, I know I personally went into members of Congress's offices to say, hey, what are you doing about, in my case, it was my future sister-in-law, who is a scientist and might be losing an NIH grant, but that's...
Yeah. I changed my mind. I do have an answer after listening to you give your answer, Jordan. Keep being loud. I know that's something that, could be taken either way, but keep being loud. Keep speaking up. When
non-violently.
Yes, non-violently. Keep speaking up. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to your friends, make those posts online. The more that you share your information and your story, more importantly, with the people who are in your personal life, because the people who trust you most are the people who know you the best. Keep speaking up. That is the best way that we are going to get over, under, through, around everything that's been going on, and we are here to support you through that.
Yeah, and to the people, if anybody listening to this is somebody who is influential in media in any way or looking for their own message, the one thing I will say that I've noticed is we got to get back to sharp, biting political commentary. I saw one of the many TikToks of MAGA people being all upset when Green Day changed the lyrics of American Idiot from not a part of your redneck agenda to not a part of your MAGA agenda. Like, these people didn't realize the song was about them the whole time because it was presented in a way that got them so into it that they didn't even realize they were singing criticism of their own leaders. And we've got to get back to that. We've got to stop the, I hate to say it, but the Ivy League preaching from the ivory tower about what is and isn't right, and instead we gotta show people through the art and music and culture that they care about. And I think the Super Bowl was actually a really good start to that, the halftime show performance, which I
My God,
loved.
I loved the halftime show with Kendrick Lamar. The entire time I was like waiting and leading up to it starting, I was like, fingers crossed there's going to be some big political statement. And when Samuel Jackson showed up on the screen dressed up as Uncle Sam, I lost my mind. I was like, oh my God, this is about to be wonderful. And the whole field looked like a game controller. We could have a whole episode breaking down what the entire Super Bowl show was about, but it was incredible. And my favorite comment that I saw about the whole Super Bowl halftime show was from one of our favorite keyboard warriors, Lauren Boebert, on Twitter. She made a comment saying, I can't understand a single thing Kendrick is saying. I need subtitles. Which, guess what? That's DEI. That's the only DEI comment I will make during this podcast. I know how we all feel about it.
She needs DEI to understand the art and culture of criticizing her. But who's the snowflake now? Anyway, point being, we need to get back to that biting criticism. We need to stop being afraid to say what we mean and say how we feel and really dig deep into our art and culture, because that's the only thing that is going to save us. We're not going to get it from the media because it takes them too long to get anything done. We're not going to be able to win by keeping up with the rat race. The flood the zone strategy will always beat anything anyone can do to fight back with morals, because it is always easier to throw a bunch of evil in the world than it is to clean it up. But the only thing we have left is our art and culture, and we have to use it, we have to promote it, we have to share it, and we have to really dig deep and have these conversations about the media around us, and we gotta make better content. Because at the end of the day, politics is just a content business, and whoever has the best content is gonna win. So, what are we doing? We're making content. We're testing new things and figuring out how to give Democrats the tools to create the best content possible so that come the next election, we have the media infrastructure to fight back.
Yeah, and any content that you want to see, let us know. We respond. We read everything. I also come from a very heavy arts background. I grew up doing ballet for 17 years, and I play music. As you could probably see and guess, art and culture is something that I know that is incredibly important to both Jordan and I know it's probably incredibly important to all of you as well. So please let us know what type of content you want to see. Let us know who you want to see on the podcast. If there's a petition that you want to put up, you can put it on our website and share it with people now. We truly, truly want to hear from you. And again, this would not be possible without any of you. And we're so thankful that you are along for the ride with us. And we are so thankful that you want us to be along the ride with you.
Thank you so much for being here. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, like, and share, because that is the most helpful thing you can do to make sure that your voice gets to the center of the democratic ecosystem. And we look forward to continuing the conversation, and we'll see you next time.
Yep, we'll see you next time.